Good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Tom Murphy Show. This is my first show in the new studio here at the Town Center, and LMC-TV has done an amazing job setting this place up. And good luck to LMC-TV in the future here. You've done an excellent job. And tonight, I'm lucky to have as my guests the two women who run the Community Resource Center, which is located down in Washingtonville. Used to be the Hispanic Resource Center. We have Jirandy Martinez, and we have Janet Rolon. Ladies, thank you very much for showing up tonight.
Thank you for having us.
No problem. I like to say, when there's a problem, when there is a family that needs to be taken care of, you got to go two people. So, can you give me like a little rundown on what the Community Resource Center does, just for the folks watching tonight?
Sure. So our mission is to fully and in a healthy way integrate the immigrant community to the larger community. So we do that through case management services or social services, educational programs for children, youth, and adults, and job readiness with our worker center. We also do workers' rights and an array of things. I mean, anything that the community needs, we're really there for.
Tutoring of children too, right?
Yeah, well, we've done some lit clubs, literacy clubs. We're just in discussions with the Mamaroneck School District about possibly doing an Amigos club. So there's so many opportunities and so many chances to collaborate with the community, and we're always so happy to explore those. Because I think that we're a one-stop hub. The Head Start is there, the food pantry is there, and now we're there. So it's really a one-stop shop.
Yes, for kind of like social services for folks in the community. We're in a different age now in America, and there's been a lot of animosity toward immigrants. I think a lot of it was, just reactionary and non-thought through, and just in my opinion, mean-spirited. The IPA, and how can local municipalities, help you out and give models to monitor ICE activity? You want to kind of talk about that for a little bit?
Yes. Well, in terms of the Immigrant Protection Act, we were really happy that this Westchester County passed the Immigrant Protection Act because our community needed to feel some kind of protection from a much bigger umbrella, which is the county. And in that sense, we as advocates, we need to implement the immigrant, kind of like the same model of the Immigrant Protection Act in our local municipalities. Because what this really means is that immigrants are backed up by their local governments and then just not going to be exposed to the federal government just because they are immigrants. So I guess in that sense, it really sent a really strong message to the federal government in terms of this, the county is here to protect the immigrant community, but also we need to do a lot of work in terms of how we implement that law and how we actually make sure that our immigrant community is protected.
Right. And the public safety of the entire community also. So reporting crimes is so important, and we don't want people to fear reporting crimes because they are immigrants or undocumented or what have you. And so it's really also about protecting the entire community of the Westchester County. So yes, we're really excited that it's passed at the county level. And the question is, like, how do we model that in municipalities? Because we have all these different local municipalities that have jurisdictions. What is it, 42, 44?
45.
Yes.
45. 45 local jurisdictions. So it's different if you go from Mamaroneck to Harrison to Rye. And how can we, as municipalities, model what the county has done with the Immigrant Protection Act? Is it a resolution that protects immigrants and allows for people to feel safe calling the police or,
Yes.
And I think all three communities in this area, the town of Mamaroneck, the village of Mamaroneck, and the village of Larchmont, all kind of are heading in the same direction. We want people to be able to feel free to, come to a police, to come to a village or a town meetings and express, their concerns as residents, and we treat everybody the same. And that's our goal here, is to treat everybody the same. It's up to the federal government to enforce the immigration laws. It is not up to the local governments. And I think almost every forward-thinking police department feels that way.
Right.
You know, they want people to report crimes to them. They want victims to come forward. Because if there's you know, somebody in a community that's harming or terrorizing that community, that hurts everybody in general. So you know, we all live here together, and we want to live as harmoniously as possible.
Absolutely. And this isn't about sanctuary communities
No.
or not. It's about respecting the law, but also respecting the law fully, not the abuse of law, but you know, having due process for all residents, immigrant or not. I think that that's what we really want to encourage.
And not to judge who somebody is by their accent or their color. Or
Right.
there's been, you know, there's a lot of talk. There's always a lot of talk about a lack of affordable housing in our community and in Westchester at large, and that's true no matter, you know, what, you know, unless you're really, really, really wealthy. I think everybody feels that, from the middle class down to, you know, the people with the most needs. You know, there's been a lot of talk about in there, and I know that we had fire victims. So can you talk about the affordable housing and how it you know, relates to landlord accountability?
Right. So, I mean, maybe I can start with this, but we actually identify a lack of affordable housing in Mamaroneck, especially when the fire happened. We couldn't.
Fire on Mount Pleasant.
Exactly. We couldn't relocate 9 families who were displaced from their homes due to this fire that happened in the eve of Christmas.
December 23rd, yes.
Exactly. So what happened was that we reached out to realtors, to landlords, trying to find places for these families, but unfortunately their rents were so high that even with governmental assistance, for example, Section A, these families couldn't rent those, you know, apartments available in Mamaroneck. So I guess in that sense, we need to have a conversation in terms of what affordable housing means in Mamaroneck. You know, what is to live in Mamaroneck, or people, you know, instead of looking outside Mamaroneck, because they, you know, their children attend school, so sometimes it's very hard for them to make those decisions moving out of a place when they can afford rent, for example. So I guess in our position as advocates, you know, we usually reach out to local government and see how can we approach this issue for our families to continue living in Mamaroneck, because we don't want them to move out, but we want them is to find a place to live, and also, you know, that place is apt to be habitable, and that actually, you know, brings this issue about landlord accountability, because we have been, I mean, we don't know exactly what caused this fire, but what I can say is that there are many houses in Mamaroneck that, unfortunately, the conditions of these houses, you know, are not safe. So how can we work with landlords in a sense that they can make these places safe, you know, for our community to live in, and also, you know, try to make more housing available for this community that have lived here for so long and they don't want to move out. But, you know, try to have that kind of initial conversation to see, you know, what can, you know, how we can make this, you know, available and happen.
And it's a vicious cycle, not even just in Mamaroneck, all over the county and all over New York. And you know, because people are so willing to stay where they know, where they're familiar with, or where their family is, or where their school or local school district is, they're more willing to live in unsafe housing conditions, despite them having tenants' rights and the education that we do with the community. And so, you know, I think that if we can educate landlords and hold them accountable, we're less likely to have this situation where somebody's like, oh, well, I'll live in a house with molding or a bathroom that I can't breathe in because I need my child to go to the school because that's all we know, that's all our family knows. And I don't think that there's I think that there are resources here and that we want. I mean, that was such a beautiful example of how the community can come together to support.
Fire victims.
Yeah, I mean, you were there. You're the reason that we were able to do such a rapid response. And
working in tandem with you guys.
yes, and and all of the community members coming out to support and provide gift cards and funding and clothing.
It was heartwarming. It really was.
It really was heartwarming, and I don't think that we live in a community where we don't want to support folks. I think it's that we are very blessed to be in this community, and so how can we make it better for everybody?
I just do want to point out, because you brought up the topic, if you know of somebody that's living in substandard housing, that's living in unsafe housing, please report it to the building department, and we will all investigate, because that situation could cause a tragedy.
Right.
And nobody wants to see that. And,
Exactly.
that being said, I just want to bring up another point. In the village of Mamaroneck, the Mamaroneck Village Board has just passed a moratorium on development, and part of that, was the impetus behind it was the idea that we're becoming more of a city than we are a village, and part of also my fear is that the development, especially down in Washingtonville, will push out, residents who've been there a long time, residents who are of lower income. Because I'll tell you the truth, I experienced it in my life. I grew up on the west side of Manhattan in the 60s and 70s, and it was lower middle class area, and now Chelsea is ridiculously expensive, and and not that I want to move back, but I could never afford to move back where I grew up.
Right.
And I don't think we want that here.
No, we don't.
In Mamaroneck.
Yeah, and I can speak to that on a personal level. It's not even just about the people we serve, but also the young people in the community and who we do serve. But we want the community that grew up here to also be here.
People went to high school here. They want to come back and have a family.
Yeah. And some of us don't know if we can live here anymore. Yeah. So it's it's challenging on so many different levels. And I mean, wouldn't we want people to continue to live here?
Yes. Mamaroneck, if it has been a home to families, and a lot of these families for generations and generations and generations. But now you see the generation, your guys' age, that can no longer afford to stay here, and they're going up to Brewster, and they're going, to places where they could get a decent house.
And not everybody has the luxury of transportation, for example. So that is a big barrier. I mean, if in the community that we work with, they face that challenge, maybe more than other people who have access to driver's licenses. Right. So and that's where we say that they don't. I mean, if we can work out a way that they can continue living in Mamaroneck, so they don't need to face those unnecessary barriers because they work locally, they send their kids to the local schools, and they don't need to pretty much go outside Mamaroneck, because Mamaroneck, as you said, it's beautiful, and I work in Mamaroneck, and I feel like I live in Mamaroneck, but even though I live in White Plains, but Mamaroneck is kind of like my hometown. Yeah. But unfortunately, I can't. Even if I want to move, to the village, it's very hard for me to afford it.
Yes.
So.
Believe me, I know.
Yeah, and all of these things are so intertwined. People want to live close to transportation. They want to. The IPA may affect people, or lack of IPA, or lack of feeling safe in the community. Maybe parents aren't getting involved in the school district anymore. So all of these things, it's like a tangled web.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a couple questions I want to ask you, but you just touched on schools. The children of immigrants in our community, how does the school district react to that? I mean, how do they fare in the school district? I mean, I know there's some good programs, but are there other problems or concerns that need to be addressed? Or?
Well, we are part, and since 2011, CRC has been part of the PATHS committee, and it's the Program Alignment Team for Hispanic Students. I think so. I grew up in this community, and I see a vast difference between what the school welcoming immigrants was back when, 15 years ago, to what it is now. And I think that the school district is making a concerted effort to really involve people, immigrants. There's a Padres Unidos, it's a Latinos parent PTA. There's a civics education program that we hold at the CRC and really do some outreach with the school district. I mean, so many efforts, the Dos Caminos, the dual language program. There are a lot of opportunities for for the immigrant community to be heard and to be, to be served. But it's also about people feeling safe.
And in addition
being able
to,
to.
exactly, and in addition to that, the school, for example, since the new administration took place, they have been very supportive of, parents of immigrants, especially the newly arrived, in Mamaroneck. So in that sense, the school has shown that there is fear, in our community, especially the fear that children are perceiving, but maybe not speaking about that. So in that sense, the school, the social workers have been able to say, hey, maybe, counseling is needed. Maybe, you cannot avoid being deported, but let's deal with the counseling piece. And in that sense, we have been able to partner with the counseling center from Mamaroneck, the CCC, and they have been wonderful in terms of being available, so we can refer families there. But it's
just for people, the Community Counseling Center is located on Stanley Avenue.
Exactly.
If you ever have a problem or need some help with an emotional issue, they are open to everybody.
Definitely, and they have been a great support, even though some families are not ready to seek counseling because they want to deal with the immediate need, which is family planning in case they get detained, but
even like food security, rent security.
exactly. But for for young kids that just arrived in the country and they are attending high school, for example, they have been reaching out for legal counseling and also for any other type of services that the family as a whole may need. So we have a strong partnership with the high school in that sense, and we're trying to work with them case by case because not all our families need all these services put in place at once. Some of them want to talk about, what's going on, try to make sure that the children are okay, and they are, dealing with this whole situation about deportation, and try to make a life, pretty much, And
Is there like a palpable fear among the population? I mean, I'll just tell you a quick story. I mean, and I hate, bringing up politics, but, after Trump got elected, my youngest son is on a wrestling team. And there's a lot of kids whose parents are immigrants on the wrestling team. And he came home, and you kind of know when something's bugging your kid. And I started, prying it at him, like, what's the matter? And he said, Dad, I feel so bad. There's a lot of these guys that are friends of mine, and they're afraid that they're going to go home and their parents aren't going to be there.
yeah.
And it's just, that's an awful way to live.
Yeah.
I feel like that.
Janet shared something earlier today about how, and she's worked at the CRC for 15 years. So I think you said today, I've never had to.
Can't tell by looking at her.
Yeah.
Did I just age you?
Yeah.
No, but she said that she's never experienced this amount of what did you say?
Fear. I mean, this level of fear.
Yeah.
I've never, I share my cell phone, with my clients just in case there are emergencies, especially at this, moment. And I have been receiving text messages from people who don't even want to go to an IRS appointment. So that's how hard the fear is, and I feel for them. And even though we can say yes, you are fine, you can go to an IRS office, I'm like, are they really safe? So
especially with the increase of ICE activity in the Westchester County. 20 detentions in the last month, over 20. And the more we get phone calls of folks asking, "Can I pick up my child?" the more we're like,
Jesus.
yeah.
Okay, so this is really you can't. If you have to make a phone call to ask if you are safe to pick up your child, this is serious.
Exactly.
Just playing off on that, I just want to point out one thing. What's coming up that's really important in this country is the census in 2020.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of this is, instilling fear so that there's a large number of residents who do not answer the census. And if those residents, the census doesn't, calculate citizens, it calculates residents.
Exactly.
So I think it's really important to, have folks like yourself encouraging people to fill out the census, because the census depends upon your congressional representation, the money you get from the federal government. And when I was a trustee of the Village of Mamaroneck in 2008, which was 10 years ago, and I remember we got a lot of stuff from the federal government, like, well, if people were looking to hire people, put this out there, this is the number you call if you want a job, taking a census, and we're getting none of that now. So, I don't think that this government that we're living under now is really supportive of the census and counting everybody the way the country has been in the past, going back to George Washington.
No, they're not. And I would say that they're probably even using it as a tactic to
scare
attack
people.
folks and scare people. And the census, filling out the census was challenging enough 10 years ago, and now with the question of citizenship or not, I mean, we're going to have to pry it out, but we appreciate how important a census is, especially as a nonprofit organization where we count on those numbers for funding, for, we need to report who's here, and everything that the census accounts for. And so
Federal aid comes per capita.
Right.
Exactly.
So, I mean, we're going to have to do a lot of education about how important that is already. Again, yeah.
I'd be happy to help you with that if I can help you with that.
Thank you.
Because I've been talking about it at board meetings.
Oh, we appreciate that.
How do you think the immigrant population is perceived in Mamaroneck from our community?
Well, maybe I can speak, years ago, because I have been with the CRC for a number of years, and I myself had that question, because I work with the immigrant community, but I also reach out to potential people who can help our immigrant community members. So that question is still out there for me. I don't know how immigrants are perceived, for example, in the village, because, the CRC has gone through a lot of history with the village since 2006. And what we do pretty much is just, make sure that human rights are respected, that people have a chance to look for work, for example, and also that everybody is being seen as, another human being instead of just an immigrant, because that comes with a, certain stereotype, and that's what we are trying to change. For one is that immigrants are not criminals, and I know that has been, said even by our own president, and sometimes, you just have to connect with the immigrant community in order to know, who your neighbors are. For me, I think that's very important, to have those relationships, to know your neighbors, to see, who, what organization in your community serve this population, and, just try to get a grasp of, what this community, struggles with, and also their own accomplishments, right? So, for me, that question is still an answer. And I hope and I want to believe, based on what we have seen in December, for example, that outpouring, from our community with these, 9 families who were displaced, that showed me that, yes, Mamaroneck really cares. And I really want to, kind of like open the doors to whoever has certain doubts, or whoever has certain perceptions about immigrants. Come to us, talk to us.
Just let me also point out, if someone needs help with social services and they're not an immigrant, your door is open.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes, because that's why we are the community resource center.
That's why you're not the Hispanic Resource Center anymore.
Exactly, and we used to be that, and even when we were the Hispanic Resource Center, we were helping, our community members in Mamaroneck.
Without a doubt.
Exactly, because whoever is in need, they can come to us, and we can try to find, any resource available for them in order to meet that need. So we are not going by who we serve, we're going by to people in need.
And what would you need more from the local governments that we're not doing?
Well, I think that we can continue to collaborate together. Open communication and, having that access is very crucial for us, for local officials. I think as a nonprofit organization serving so many community members and so many constituents, being able to pick up a phone or send an email, which we do with you, but also with local law enforcement, with the Board of Trustees, the comprehensive village plan that's happening currently. Our community members need to feel connected to that, and we're the line of connection. So any questions that we have, I think that as long as we have open communication, and we may not agree on everything, and that's just reality. But if we can be respectful and continue to operate at a level where it takes a village, and we know that,
Yes, it does.
then I think that we can be in a good place. And we happen to be an exemplary village in the county. I think that people really see the village of Mamaroneck, the town of Mamaroneck, and Larchmont as exemplary.
Yes.
And I'm very proud of that, and I'm sure you are. And so, we can continue to model this this what other villages and towns in the county should do.
Right.
I mean, December 23rd, when that happened, I knew that was going to happen because I know that deep down people are good.
Yeah.
And they want to help.
Right.
And they want to do the right thing. You got to give them an opportunity to do the right thing. And the sad thing is that in our society today, the media focuses so much on negativity. And the loudest voices always get the most play. So but when people have a chance to, actually help their fellow human being, and you give them that opportunity, they'll almost invariably do it because they want to do the right thing because it feels good.
Exactly.
And the negativity is hard to live with. It doesn't feel good constantly. It wears you down, man. It just, it wears you out.
And in terms of, and just to add to what Jay was saying is that, we wanted to have some kind of, coffee event with our local police and our community. Not only the immigrant community, but the community as a whole. Because, for example, I don't know, who our police officers are. I know of, certain police officers that we have a connection with because of the work that we do. But when I ask my clients, do you know, that you can approach the police department in the village, and they are like, well, but there are certain, they don't feel, as, that's okay,
It's
that's
a protection.
exactly. They don't feel,
And they might come from a country where the police are not there to help you.
Exactly.
The police are there to,
You're
take
totally
advantage of you.
right. You're
Which
totally
is not
right.
the case here.
Exactly.
Yes.
So we're trying to tell them it's not how it is in our home countries.
Yes.
The police actually is here to protect, but I guess the best way that we can send that message is by having, a meeting with our own law enforcement and say, you can talk to them. You can. These are just regular people that are here to make sure that nobody, takes advantage of
And
you.
break those barriers.
Exactly.
Maybe we could set up a
Those
meeting with the
barriers.
police chief and a few
Completely,
of the,
and even with our board of trustees, even with you, Tom, So that will really make, will help us to build that trust. And our community really wants to do that.
Well, I'd be happy to participate in that. We're getting near the end, and we have to wrap up. But this has been a great conversation, and it's very easy to talk to you folks. And I hope you got everything you need to get out. And I just want to point out that, and I said it before, and I'm going to say it again. When there's a problem in Mamaroneck, when there's a family that needs help, you're the people to go to.
Yes.
Whether it's a newly arrived family or a family that's been here for generations and generations. Because you two work really hard, you know who to call, you know how to get the job done. And I so appreciate, as mayor, having you in my community, because I know where to point people. And that is a big resource.
Right.
I want to wrap.
And this
We've done
year,
this for 20 years. It's our 20th anniversary,
Wow.
so we want to honor and
We're
celebrate
going to have a party?
Yeah, in December, everybody's invited.
I just want to end up by thanking tonight's volunteers, Nick Gutierrez and Jason Milan, who will work in the cameras. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And until the next time, I am Tom Murphy, and we will see you around the village. Have a good night.